My name is Daniel Harris, and last October I booked an Airbnb outside Denver that I still do not believe was ever meant to be rented. I was 29 at the time, flying in for a 2-day work conference. It was one of those trips where everything was already kind of a mess before I even got there. My flight got delayed. My rental car pickup took forever. And on top of that, I had waited way too long to book a hotel. That part was on me. By the time I started looking, every hotel near the conference center was either sold out or charging some insane rate because there were 3 other events in town that same weekend. So I opened Airbnb. I know, that was probably mistake number 1. The listing I found was a little 1-bedroom house about 15 minutes from the venue. Nothing about it looked flashy or too good to be true. It was not some luxury loft for $40 a night or anything stupid like that. It looked boring, honestly. Gray couch, tiny kitchen, clean bathroom, queen bed, a small porch with 1 light over the door. The host only had a handful of reviews, but they were all 5 stars. The wording was normal too. No weird grammar, no stock photos, no pressure to pay off platform. So I booked it. The host messaged me almost right away with the check-in instructions. He said the house would be ready anytime after 4 p.m. and the keypad code would activate then. I told him I would probably get in after midnight because I had a late meeting and a work dinner. That was my original plan. But around 6 p.m., my last meeting got canceled. The dinner got moved to the next day, and suddenly I had nothing to do except drive to the rental and crash. I never updated the host. I got to the house around 9:40 p.m. The neighborhood was quiet in that weird suburban way where every house looks asleep, no cars moving, no people walking dogs, just dark windows, trimmed lawns, and the sound of my rental car engine clicking as it cooled down. The porch light was already on. That made me feel better for about 5 seconds. The keypad code worked on the first try. Inside, the house looked almost exactly like the pictures. Same couch, same kitchen, same bedspread, same cheap wall art over the couch. But the second I stepped in, I got this feeling that is hard to explain without sounding dramatic. It did not feel lived in. It did not even feel properly cleaned. It felt staged, like somebody had put just enough effort into making the place look normal, but forgot all the little things that make a real rental feel real. No coffee, no extra towels, no board games, no random batteries in a drawer, no guest book, no half-used salt shaker. Nothing. The fridge had 1 bottle of water in it. I remember standing there with my suitcase, still in my hand, thinking, okay, that's a little weird, but I was tired. And when you are tired, your brain starts making excuses for stuff it should probably pay attention to. I locked the front door, checked the bedroom window, brushed my teeth, and got into bed around midnight. For maybe 10 minutes, everything was quiet. Then I heard something slide across the floor outside my bedroom door. Not footsteps. Not a creak. A soft scrape. Like paper. I sat up so fast, my heart started pounding in my throat. There was a thin gap under the bedroom door. I stared at it, waiting for whatever I had heard to happen again. Then a small white note slowly slid into the room. It came under the door, inch by inch, like someone on the other side was pushing it with 2 fingers. For a second, I did not move. My brain honestly refused to accept what I was looking at. It was like when you wake up from a dream and something does not match reality yet. Then, I got out of bed, picked up the note, and turned it over. The note said, "You got here too early." I locked the bedroom door so fast I almost dropped my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely unlock the screen. I called 911 and whispered the address to the dispatcher. She kept asking if I could safely leave the room, and I kept saying no, because right after I started talking, the hallway floor creaked. Not once, twice. Then the bedroom doorknob turned. Slowly, not like somebody trying to force it open, more like somebody checking whether I had locked it. A man's voice said, "Open the door." I did not answer. The dispatcher told me to stay quiet. I could hear my own breathing, way too loud, and I remember pressing my hand over my mouth because I was afraid he could hear it too. A few seconds passed. Then the man said, "You weren't supposed to be here before midnight." That was the moment everything inside me went cold. Because I was supposed to get there after midnight. That was the arrival window I had mentioned in the app. But my plans changed. I drove in early. I did not tell anybody. I did not post it. I did not text the host. The only place that information existed was inside the booking conversation. The police got there in under 10 minutes, but it felt like an hour. When they entered the house, whoever had been in the hallway was gone. There were no broken windows, no forced doors, no open back door. Nothing that explained how he got out or how he got in. But in the kitchen trash, under a fresh liner, the officers found fast food wrappers, a printed screenshot of my booking, my license plate number written on a receipt, and my expected arrival time circled in pen. The next morning, police contacted the real owner of the house. He had never listed it on Airbnb. He said the house had been empty for months while he was trying to decide whether to sell it. The host account disappeared that same night. Airbnb refunded me, but honestly, I did not care about the money at that point. Because the money was never the scary part. Someone made a fake listing. Someone got me to that exact house. Someone waited inside. And when I arrived earlier than expected, they were not scared. They were annoyed. And to this day, the one thing I cannot stop thinking about is this. If I had shown up after midnight like I said I would, I do not think that note would have been the first thing waiting for me. If that note under the door already made you uncomfortable, hit subscribe. I post long, real-feeling, scary stories you can listen to at night. And trust me, the next one gets worse. I was living alone in Oklahoma when the scariest knock I have ever heard came right after the tornado sirens started. This happened about 2 years ago. I had a little one-story rental near the edge of a small town, the kind of place where you can hear trucks from the highway at night and see storms coming from miles away. Behind my house was an open field. Across the road were a few homes, but they were spaced far enough apart that nobody would hear you if you yelled unless they were already outside. That night, the weather was ugly. Not just normal rain. I mean the kind of storm where your phone keeps screaming emergency alerts. The sky flashes white every few seconds, and the wind sounds like it is trying to peel the roof off. I had the local news on low volume, but I was mostly watching the radar on my phone. The meteorologist was telling everyone in my county to take shelter immediately. At 1:17 a.m., the tornado sirens started. If you have never heard tornado sirens in the middle of the night, it is hard to explain how disturbing they are. During the day, they are scary. At night, they sound like the whole town is warning you too late. I was sitting in the living room with a flashlight, my shoes already on, trying to decide whether to get into the hallway bathroom. Then someone knocked on my front door. 3 slow knocks. Not frantic. Not like a neighbor panicking. Just 3 calm knocks. I froze. Nobody knocks during a tornado warning unless something is seriously wrong. And even then, most people would be yelling, waving, trying to get your attention. I walked to the door, but I did not open it. Through the peephole, I saw a man standing on my porch. He was soaked from the rain, wearing a dark hoodie, with his head lowered so I could not see his face clearly. I asked what he wanted. He said his truck had gone off the road and asked if he could come inside to use my phone. His voice sounded calm, too calm. I told him I would call someone for him. He did not answer right away. Then he said, "Please, ma'am. I'm freezing out here." That made my stomach tighten. Because I am not a woman. My voice is not even close. I had already spoken to him through the door. There was no way he thought I was a woman, unless he had decided that before I ever answered. I told him I was calling 911. The second I said that, he lifted his head a little and looked over his shoulder, but not toward the road. He looked toward the side of my house, toward the backyard. That was when every bad feeling I had became real. I backed away from the door and moved quietly into the kitchen. There was a small window over the sink that looked toward the back patio and the sliding glass door. At first, all I saw was rain streaking down the glass. Then lightning flashed, and I saw another man standing by my sliding door. He was not knocking. He was not calling for help. He was holding something long and dark in his hand. It looked like a pry bar. I do not remember running to the bathroom, but somehow that is where I ended up. I locked the door, sat in the bathtub, and called 911. While I was on the phone, the knocking at the front door turned into banging. Then the back door started shaking. The storm was so loud that everything blended together. Thunder, wind, sirens, banging, glass rattling, my phone slipping in my sweaty hand. The dispatcher kept telling me officers were on the way, but because of the storm, I had no idea if they were 2 minutes away or 20. Then, all at once, everything stopped. The banging stopped. The shaking stopped. Even the sirens seemed quieter for a second. That silence was worse than the noise. Police arrived a few minutes later. Both men were gone. The officers found muddy footprints near the sliding door, fresh scratches around the lock, and a truck parked about half a mile away behind a line of trees. The truck had no plates. Inside it, they found gloves, duct tape, 2 rain ponchos, a flashlight, and an empty backpack. The truck was not stuck. It had been hidden. A deputy told me later that the men probably used the tornado warning as cover. Everyone would be inside. Nobody would be looking out windows. Nobody would hear glass break over the storm. And if someone did call for help, response times could be slower because emergency services were already stretched thin. They were never caught. A week later, my landlord casually mentioned that the previous tenant had been a single woman who lived there alone. That detail messed me up more than I expected, because when the man at my door said "ma'am," maybe he thought she still lived there, or maybe he just wanted to hear what kind of voice answered. Either way, I moved out 2 months later. I still live in Oklahoma. I have heard tornado sirens plenty of times since then, but now, when they go off, I do not just check the radar. I check the porch camera, then the back door, then every window. Because I learned that night that bad weather does not just bring storms. Sometimes it brings people who know nobody is watching. This happened during a drive through Nevada, and it is the reason I do not stay at roadside motels anymore, unless I have absolutely no other choice. I was 33 at the time, driving to California for work. I had told myself I could make the whole trip in one push, which was dumb, but I was trying to save time and money. All day I kept saying, just 1 more hour. Then, another hour. Then, another. By midnight, my eyes were burning, my shoulders were stiff, and I had started doing that thing where you blink too long and scare yourself awake. So when I saw an old motel sign off the highway, I pulled in. The place looked rough, but not dangerous at first glance. Faded sign. Mostly empty parking lot. Ice machine humming near the office. Front desk behind scratched glass. The clerk was a skinny guy in his 40s with a baseball cap pulled low. He barely looked up when I walked in. I asked for one night. He handed me a key for room 12. Before I left the office, I asked if anyone else was staying near me. The parking lot was so empty it felt weird, and I did not want someone right next door if there were 10 empty rooms. He said, "No. You're alone on that side." I remember his exact tone because it was flat. Not friendly, not annoyed, just flat. Room 12 smelled like old carpet, cigarettes, and whatever cleaner motels use when they want to pretend a room is not disgusting. I checked the bathroom, checked behind the curtains, locked the door, and put a chair in front of it. That was a habit I picked up from traveling alone. There was a connecting door between my room and the room next to mine. I hated that immediately, but it had a deadbolt on my side, so I locked it and shoved my suitcase against it. Then, I crashed without even changing clothes. Sometime around 2 a.m., I woke up to 3 knocks. Not at my door. From the wall. I sat up in the dark, trying to figure out if I had dreamed it. Then it came again. 3 slow knocks from the room next to mine. I stared at the wall. A muffled voice said, "Hey." I did not answer. The voice said, "You awake?" It was close. Too close. Like whoever it was had their mouth near the wall. I grabbed my phone and called the front desk. The same clerk answered, sounding irritated, like I had woken him up. I told him someone was in the room next to mine. He said, "That room's empty." I said, "I'm hearing someone right now." He sighed and told me to hold on. A minute later, I heard footsteps outside on the walkway. The clerk knocked on the room next door, unlocked it, and went inside. I listened to him walk around for maybe 10 seconds. Then, he came to my door and knocked. I did not open it all the way. I kept the chain on and looked through the crack. He said, "Nobody's in there." I asked if he checked the bathroom. He said yes. I asked if there was another way in. He said no. Then, he looked past me into my room, just for a second too long, and said, "You probably heard the pipes." I shut the door and put the chain back. For a few minutes, I tried to believe him. I really did. I sat on the edge of the bed with my shoes on, holding my keys, listening. Nothing. Then the connecting door rattled. Not hard, just one small pull. I looked at it. The suitcase was still against the bottom. The deadbolt was still turned. Then it rattled again. There was a tiny gap under the door, and I saw a shadow move on the other side. Someone whispered, "I know you're in there." I did not think after that. I grabbed my backpack, left my suitcase, yanked the chair away from the front door, and ran. When I got into my car, I locked the doors so hard, my finger slipped off the button. As I backed out of the parking lot, I looked toward the room next to mine. The curtain moved, just a little. Someone was standing behind it. The next morning, I called the motel from a gas station 2 towns away. A woman answered this time. I told her I had been in room 12 and asked about room 13. She got quiet. Then she told me room 13 had been locked for repairs for over a month because the connecting door did not shut right. I asked who had access. She said staff. That was the last answer I got. I never got my suitcase back. I did not care enough to risk going back for it. I still do not know if the clerk lied to me, if somebody was hiding in that room, or if both things were true. But I think about that whisper more than I want to admit. Because it did not sound like some drunk guy messing around. It sounded like someone who had been waiting for me to wake up. I did not think anything was wrong with my closet at first. That is the part that still bothers me. This happened when I was 24 and renting a small house outside Knoxville, Tennessee. It was my first place by myself, and I was proud of it, even though, looking back, the house was kind of a dump. Old floors, bad windows, cheap paint, weird stains that had been painted over, but not really hidden. It was the type of house where every noise had an excuse. Creak in the hallway, old wood. Tap in the wall, pipes. Door moving a little, bad frame. At least that is what I told myself. The first few nights were fine. I was unpacking, working, ordering takeout, doing the whole broke first place thing. Then one morning, I woke up and noticed my bedroom closet door was open. Not wide open, just about an inch. I figured I had left it that way. Next morning, same thing. 1 inch open. By the 4th morning, it started annoying me. Not scaring me, just annoying me. I thought maybe the latch was bad or the floor was uneven. So that night, before bed, I pushed the closet door shut hard enough to make sure it clicked. Then, because I felt ridiculous but also wanted proof for myself, I took a picture of it closed. When I woke up, it was open again. Same amount. About an inch. I told my landlord, and he laughed like I was making a big deal out of nothing. He said, "Old houses do weird stuff, man." That was his entire response. So the next night, I put a chair in front of the closet door. Not because I thought a person was inside. I want to be clear about that. At that point, my brain was still not going there. I thought maybe if the door shifted, the chair would stop it, and I could finally stop thinking about it. At 2:14 a.m., I woke up to wood scraping across the floor. I opened my eyes. The room was dark except for the blue light from my phone charger. For a second, I did not know what had woken me up. Then I heard it again. Scrape. The chair was moving. Slowly. The closet door was pushing it from the inside. I lay there frozen, staring at this chair sliding inch by inch across my bedroom floor. My brain kept trying to make it something else. Maybe the chair was tilted. Maybe the floor slanted. Maybe I was dreaming. Then the door pushed again. Harder. I slapped the lamp on. Everything stopped. I did not check the closet. No way. I grabbed my phone, left the house in socks and a t-shirt, got into my car, and drove to a Walmart parking lot. I slept there until sunrise with the doors locked. The next day, I bought a cheap security camera, but it did not arrive until later in the week. So that night, I set my laptop on the dresser, aimed it at the closet, and hit record. I did not sleep in the bedroom. I stayed on the couch with the TV on low and every light in the house on. In the morning, I watched the footage. For the first 2 hours, nothing happened. Then the timestamp hit 2:14 a.m. The closet door slowly opened. A hand came out first. Then a man crawled out. I will never forget the way he moved. He was thin, dirty, and wearing one of my hoodies. Not a hoodie that looked like mine. One of my actual hoodies that I had been looking for earlier that week. He crouched there for a few seconds, listening. Then he stood up beside my bed. And for almost 15 minutes, he stared down at the empty spot where I usually slept. He did not look around like he was robbing the place. He did not seem nervous. He looked comfortable. That was worse. After that, he walked out of the room like he had done it before. I called the police immediately. Behind the closet, officers found a false panel. Behind that was a crawl space that connected to the laundry room and a small outside access door behind the house. Inside the crawl space were water bottles, snack wrappers, blankets, a flashlight, and some of my missing clothes. The man was gone. My landlord later admitted the last tenant had complained about sounds in the walls, but he thought it was mice. Mice. I moved out that same day. I did not even go back alone to get my stuff. The footage still messes with me, not just because there was a man hiding behind my closet, but because when he came out, he was not rushing. He was not panicked. He looked like he knew my room, like he knew my routine, like he had stood beside my bed before. And the only reason I ever found out was because one morning, that closet door was open 1 inch too far. The house looked normal when I toured it. That is what made the whole thing so easy to believe. I was 26 and trying to find a cheap rental near Columbus, Ohio. I had just started a new job, money was tight, and I needed a place fast. I found the listing on Facebook Marketplace. Small house. Quiet neighborhood. Decent price. Cheap. Yeah, but not so cheap that it screamed scam. I messaged the guy expecting either no reply or some obvious nonsense. Instead, he responded fast. His grammar was normal. His answers were normal. He did not ask for a weird payment app right away. He even offered to show me the place that afternoon. He said his name was Eric. When I met him, he looked like any regular guy. Early 30s. Clean haircut. Hoodie. Jeans. Not overly friendly. Not creepy. Just normal. He had keys. That mattered to me. He unlocked the front door, walked me through the place, and said the previous tenants had moved out suddenly because of a family emergency. The house was mostly empty, but clean. There were a few marks on the walls, some boxes in the garage, and one broken blind in the back bedroom. Nothing that felt alarming. I signed a basic lease, paid the deposit, and moved in that weekend. The first 2 nights were normal. I slept on a mattress in the living room because I did not have furniture yet. My stuff was still mostly in plastic bins. I worked during the day, came home tired, ate cheap dinners, and unpacked at night. On the third evening, I was making pasta when headlights pulled into the driveway. At first, I thought maybe Eric had come by. Annoying, but not terrifying. Then, I looked out the window and saw a family getting out of the car. A man, a woman, 2 kids. They did not walk up like visitors. They walked up like they lived there. The man unlocked the front door. We all froze. For 2 seconds, nobody said anything. Then, the woman screamed. The man pushed the kids behind him and yelled at me to get out of his house. I kept saying, I rented this place. I have a lease. He kept saying, this is our house. And he was right. They had been out of state visiting family for 3 days. At first, police treated it like a rental scam, which made sense. Somebody broke in, pretended to own the place, took my deposit, and disappeared. But then the homeowner found something in the master bedroom closet. A small wireless camera. It was hidden near the top shelf, tucked behind a loose piece of trim, and pointed toward the living room, where I had been sleeping. The memory card had videos of me, sleeping, eating, walking around in basketball shorts, unpacking boxes. But it also had footage from before I moved in. A man setting up the camera. He wore gloves and a cap, but I am almost positive it was Eric. His Facebook profile disappeared. The phone number was prepaid. The name on the lease was fake. They never found him. The homeowners were actually nice about everything once they realized I was not part of it. They let me gather my things. The wife even apologized, which made me feel worse because she had nothing to apologize for. They were victims too. Some stranger had gotten into their house, staged it as a rental, moved another stranger in, and recorded him. That is the part I still cannot make sense of. If it had only been about money, he could have taken my deposit and vanished. He did not need the camera. He did not need to watch me. But he did. And I do not know whether he was watching to see when I would leave or waiting for the night I would stop waking up. We knew something was wrong before we even unpacked. My girlfriend and I had rented a cabin in Tennessee for a quiet weekend in the Smoky Mountains. It was not fancy. No hot tub, no giant deck, no luxury couple getaway nonsense. Just a small cabin with a fireplace, 1 bedroom, a porch, and trees on every side. Honestly, that was exactly what we wanted. The host messaged us the door code that afternoon and said we were the first guests that month, so the place should feel extra clean and quiet. We got there around 9 p.m. The road up was narrow and dark, and my girlfriend kept joking that this was how every horror movie started. I laughed, but not really, because there was not another cabin close enough to see from the driveway. At first, the place looked perfect. Warm lights, clean kitchen, little fake plants on the shelves, fireplace already set with logs. Then, my girlfriend noticed the mug. It was sitting on the nightstand beside the bed. There was coffee in it, still warm. We both just stared at it. I picked it up like an idiot and touched the outside. Warm enough that somebody had poured it recently. I started making excuses right away. Maybe the cleaner left it. Maybe the mug held heat for a long time. Maybe the host had stopped by. You know, dumb stuff your brain says when it does not want the obvious answer to be true. Then we found the towel, damp, hanging behind the bathroom door. Then a half-empty orange juice bottle in the fridge. Then a fast food bag in the trash. Then men's socks in the bottom dresser drawer. My girlfriend said, "We need to leave." I messaged the host first because part of me still wanted this to be some awkward cleaning mistake. I sent, "Hey, did someone stay here recently? There's coffee and clothes in the cabin." He replied almost immediately, "No one should be there." Right after that, we heard footsteps on the porch, not in the woods, not outside somewhere, on the porch. The boards creaked right outside the front door. I looked through the curtain. A man was standing there. He was holding a key. Before I could react, he unlocked the front door and stepped inside. I grabbed my girlfriend and pulled her into the bedroom. We locked the door and pushed a dresser in front of it. For a second, the whole cabin was silent. Then we heard him walking around, slowly. No hello, no who's there, no confusion. He moved like the place belonged to him. Cabinet opened. Drawer closed. Footsteps by the fireplace. Then the footsteps came down the little hallway and stopped outside our bedroom door. He tried the handle once. My girlfriend was crying silently with both hands over her mouth. I had one shoulder against the dresser and my phone in my other hand, trying to explain to 911 where we were, even though the address barely showed up right on the map. The man stood there for maybe 30 seconds. Then he said, "Calm as anything. You're not supposed to be here tonight." After that, he left. No yelling, no running. Just footsteps back through the cabin, the front door opening, and then silence. Deputies found him about a mile away walking through the woods. He had a key to the cabin, but refused to say how he got it. The host later told us the man was a former maintenance worker who had been fired months earlier. The host claimed the locks had been changed. Clearly, they had not been changed well enough. But that explanation still did not answer everything. It did not explain the warm coffee. It did not explain the towel. It did not explain why he seemed irritated that we were there, like we had walked into his house instead of a rental we paid for. He was not breaking in. He had already been living there, and if we had been tired enough to ignore the mug and go straight to bed, we would have had no idea until he opened that bedroom door. The cheapest room I ever rented ended up being the reason I stopped trusting online listings. I was 22 and living in Arizona. I needed to move out fast and did not have enough money for my own apartment, so I started looking for rooms online. Most of them were either too expensive, too far, or gave off weird vibes immediately. Then I found one in a clean suburban house. The pictures looked nice. The rent was low. The neighborhood seemed safe. The guy renting it out said his name was Mark. He told me he worked nights and was almost never home. At the time, that sounded perfect. When I toured the place, the house was almost too clean. No clutter, no family photos, no mail on the counter, no random shoes by the door. It felt like a model home that someone forgot to make personal. Mark was polite, but he asked a lot of questions. Where do you work? What time do you leave? Do you have a boyfriend? Do you usually come home alone? Do you have friends over much? I thought he was just being cautious. Roommate stuff, you know? If you are letting a stranger into your house, you want to know their schedule. That is how I justified it. I moved in that weekend. For the first week, I barely saw him. He would leave before dinner and come back sometime after I fell asleep. We crossed paths maybe twice. Then, I started noticing the garage door. Every few nights, around 3 a.m., I would wake up to it opening. I could hear Mark come in, drag something heavy across the floor, move around in the garage for a while, and then leave again before sunrise. At first, I thought he had work equipment or maybe tools. I told myself it was none of my business. But after a while, it started getting to me. One night, after I heard his car leave, curiosity got the better of me. I went downstairs. The house was dark except for the microwave clock and a little light over the stove. The door to the garage was locked. But near the laundry room, I noticed something I had not paid attention to before. There was another door almost hidden behind a coat rack. I moved the coats and tried the knob. Unlocked. Inside was a small room I had never been shown. No windows, concrete floor, a mattress on the ground, bottled water, canned food, a plastic bin full of women's clothes. Not old clothes, not storage clothes, clothes that looked recently used. On the wall were printed screenshots of rental applications. Several of them. One of them was mine. Full name, phone number, workplace, schedule. The emergency contact line had a name and number I did not remember giving him. That made my skin crawl. I was standing there, reading my own schedule on his wall, when I heard the garage door open again. My body reacted before my brain did. I ran upstairs, locked myself in my room, and shoved my dresser in front of the door. A minute later, Mark knocked. Softly. Not angry, not panicked, just knock, knock, knock. Then he said, "I know you went in there." I did not answer. He waited. Then he said, "You should have stayed curious online." I called 911. By the time police arrived, Mark was gone. The small room was empty. The garage was empty. Somehow, in the few minutes between him realizing I knew and the officers getting there, he cleared almost everything out. Police later found out he did not own the house. He had rented it under a fake name and was illegally subleasing rooms. They never found him. 2 other people later told police they had almost rented from him too, but backed out because he kept asking too many questions about their schedules. I still do not know exactly what Mark was planning, but I know what kind of person he was looking for. Young, broke, alone, and desperate enough for a cheap room to ignore the questions that should have made them run. Drop a like if you would have packed your stuff and left the second you found your own schedule on that wall. No joke, that might be one of the biggest red flags in this whole video. I thought a stranger pulled into my driveway because the road was flooded. That was the story he wanted me to believe. This happened in rural Louisiana. I was 34 and living alone in a small house off a back road about 10 minutes from the nearest gas station. When it rained hard, the road in front of my place flooded fast. Not always badly, but enough that people slowed down or turned around if they did not know the area. One night, during a heavy storm, headlights pulled into my driveway. It was a little after midnight. I was in the kitchen making tea because the thunder had woken me up, and I knew I was not going back to sleep anytime soon. An old pickup truck sat in my driveway with the engine running. A man got out and came to my porch. He knocked twice, then leaned close to the door like he was trying to see through the little window. I asked what he needed without opening it. He said the road was washed out and asked if he could come inside to use my phone. I told him I could call someone for him. He did not like that. He kept shifting his weight and looking past me into the house. Then he asked if my husband was home. I said, "Yes, I do not have a husband." He smiled. Not a big smile. Just enough that I could see it through the rain on the glass. Then he said, "Then tell him to come out." That was when I noticed his truck had no license plates. I shut the inside lock and backed away from the door. For a moment, he stayed on the porch. Then, he walked back to his truck. I thought he was leaving. Instead, he pulled forward and parked sideways across the end of my driveway, blocking me in. That was when I called 911. While I was on the phone, I heard something hit the back door. Once, then again. I looked down the hallway and saw him outside with a tire iron. He was not pretending anymore. The dispatcher told me to get somewhere safe. I locked myself in the laundry room because it had no windows and stayed on the floor with the phone pressed to my ear. Every few seconds, I heard him hit the back door. Then, I heard him walking around the side of the house. Then, nothing. By the time deputies arrived, he was gone. The back door had dents around the lock. There were muddy footprints all around the side of the house and under the kitchen window. A deputy later told me the road was not fully flooded. A regular car might have had trouble, sure, but his truck could have made it through with no problem. He had parked there on purpose. A week later, I heard 2 other homes nearby had reported similar incidents. Same old pickup. Same story about needing help. Same question about whether a man was home. They never caught him. I do not live in that house anymore. And now, whenever it rains hard, I do not just worry about the water rising. I worry about who might use the storm as an excuse to knock. The basement door was locked from my side. That is what I kept telling myself. I was 22 and house sitting for my aunt and uncle in Pennsylvania while they were in Florida. Their house was old, built sometime in the 1950s, and it had the kind of basement that makes you want to turn the lights on before you even open the door. Cold air, concrete floor, old furnace. That damp smell old houses get no matter how much you clean. My uncle kept the basement door locked because he said the stairs were weak. I never had a reason to go down there. The first 2 nights were fine. I watched TV, ordered pizza, fed their cat, and slept in the guest room. On the 3rd night, a thunderstorm rolled in. Not a small one either. Heavy rain, loud thunder, wind hitting the windows hard enough to make the glass shake. I was on the couch watching some dumb reality show when I heard a creak under the floor. I muted the TV. Another creak. It sounded like a person shifting their weight below me. I know houses make noise. I know pipes knock. I know old wood pops when the temperature changes. But this was different. It had weight to it. I walked into the kitchen and checked the basement door. Still locked. I pulled on the knob just to be sure. Locked solid. I told myself it was pipes and went back to the couch. 10 minutes later, I heard something move on the basement stairs. Not under the floor this time. On the stairs. A slow step. Then, another. I stood in the kitchen with the TV glowing behind me and stared at that basement door. Nothing else happened. I almost called my uncle, but I did not want to sound like a scared kid. So I turned on more lights, grabbed a knife from the drawer, and sat in the living room pretending to watch TV. Around 1:30 a.m., I must have fallen asleep. I woke up to a loud bang from below. Not a creak. A bang, like something heavy had fallen over in the basement. This time, I did not try to be brave. I called 911. While I was on the phone, I heard the basement doorknob move. Just a little at first. Then again. Someone was turning it from the other side. I remember whispering to the dispatcher, "The door is locked." It's locked from my side. Like, if I kept saying it, it would mean nobody could be down there. Then the knob turned harder. I ran out the front door, got into my car, locked myself inside, and backed halfway down the driveway with the headlights pointed at the house. The police arrived maybe 7 minutes later. They searched the basement and did not find anyone, but behind the furnace, they found a sleeping bag, muddy clothes, empty cans, a flashlight, and a backpack. Inside the backpack were things from upstairs. My aunt's jewelry box, my uncle's old wallet, a stack of family photos, and one of my hoodies from the guest room. There was a small outside basement door hidden behind overgrown bushes on the side of the house. My uncle had completely forgotten it existed. The lock was broken. Police said someone had probably been staying down there for days, maybe longer. When my aunt and uncle came home, my aunt admitted she had been hearing footsteps at night for months, but thought it was my uncle getting up. My uncle said he had heard them too, and thought it was her. They sold the house the next year. I still think about that basement door sometimes, because whoever was down there was not trapped. They had a way out, which means when they started turning that doorknob, they were not trying to escape. They were trying to come up. The first time I found wet footprints in my kitchen, I thought my dog had spilled his water bowl. Then I remembered I did not have a dog. This happened when I was renting a small house in Florida for a contract job. The place was near the coast, so at first I blamed every weird thing on humidity. The air always felt damp. Towels never dried right. The windows fogged up in the morning. So when I walked into the kitchen one day and saw wet footprints on the tile, my first thought was not danger. It was confusion. The footprints led from the back door to the hallway. The back door was locked. The windows were locked. Nothing was missing. I stood there for a while, staring at them, trying to remember if I had spilled something and stepped in it. Eventually, I wiped them up and went to work. 2 nights later, it happened again. This time, the footprints were clearer. Bare feet. Adult size. They stopped outside the bathroom. I called the landlord. He said maybe water was coming in under the back door, but it had not rained. Over the next few days, little things started going missing. Bread, a banana, half a bottle of water. Nothing valuable, nothing obvious. That almost made it worse, because it made me feel crazy. If someone breaks in and steals a TV, you know what happened. If someone takes 2 slices of bread, you start arguing with yourself. Then one night around 2:30, I woke up to the kitchen sink running. I lay in bed completely still. The water stopped. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, barefoot, not trying very hard to be quiet. I locked my bedroom door and called 911. While I whispered to the dispatcher, someone stopped outside my room. I could see their shadow under the door. They stood there for maybe 10 seconds. I do not know how long 10 seconds sounds when there is a stranger outside your bedroom, but it feels endless. Then the footsteps moved away. Police searched the house and found no one. But behind the water heater in the laundry room, they found an access panel that opened into a crawl space. Inside were food wrappers, a damp towel, and a pair of shoes. The crawl space had an outside entrance hidden behind thick bushes at the back of the house. Someone had been coming in while I slept. Maybe while I was at work too. The landlord claimed he did not know about the access panel. I do not believe him. I moved out the next week. What bothers me most is how comfortable the person seemed. They were not rushing. They were not stealing electronics. They were eating my food, using my sink, walking through my hallway barefoot, like they lived there too. And for all I know, before I noticed those footprints, maybe they thought they did. For 3 weeks, I thought the sounds above my bedroom were squirrels. I was 30 and working double shifts as a nurse in Michigan. I rented a small house close to the hospital because I was too exhausted to keep commuting 40 minutes each way. The house was old, but cheap. At that point in my life, that was enough. A few weeks after moving in, I started hearing scratching above my ceiling at night. At first, I ignored it. Old house, animals, whatever. The scratching usually happened late, around the time I got home from the hospital. I would shower, eat something fast, crawl into bed, and hear little movements above me. I told myself it was squirrels or raccoons. Then the sounds changed. It was not scratching anymore. It was slow movement, weight shifting, wood creaking under pressure. That sounds dramatic, but when you hear it, you know the difference. A squirrel moves fast and random. This sounded careful. I texted my landlord and told him something was in the attic. He replied the next morning and said he would send someone to check. He did not. A few nights later, I came home after a 16-hour shift. I was so tired I ate cereal over the sink because I did not want to wash a bowl. When I walked into my bedroom, I noticed one of my scrub tops was missing from the laundry basket. I thought maybe it had fallen behind the hamper. I did not look too hard. I was dead tired. That night around 3 a.m., I woke up to a cough. Not outside, not from the street, directly above me. I sat up in bed and stared at the ceiling. Everything went quiet. I held my breath. Then, I heard one soft creak. Right over my bed, I grabbed my phone, slipped out of the room, walked straight outside, and called police from my car. When officers checked the attic, nobody was there. For about 5 minutes, I felt stupid. Embarrassed, honestly. Then, one of the officers came back down and told me someone had definitely been up there. They found a blanket, water bottles, food wrappers, a flashlight, and one of my missing work shirts. There was dust everywhere, except for one clear path from the attic hatch to a side vent. The vent screen had been cut from the outside. Someone had been climbing in and out. The officer said whoever it was probably left when they heard me moving around or calling 911. My landlord finally admitted the previous tenant had complained about missing food and animal sounds. He said he thought she was exaggerating. I moved out that week. The thing that messed me up most was my schedule. I worked 12-hour shifts, sometimes 16. That meant whoever was up there had hours every day to come down, use my bathroom, eat my food, go through my laundry, maybe stand in my bedroom. And the cough, that is what still gets me. Because it was not a scared sound. It was casual. Like the person above me had simply forgotten they needed to stay quiet. Like they had been there long enough to feel at home. I only got off the highway because my GPS said there was a gas station nearby. There was not. This happened while I was driving through Kansas after visiting family. It was close to 1 a.m., and I was low on gas. Not empty, but low enough that I was starting to watch the gauge more than the road. My GPS showed a station 3 miles off the next exit, so I took it. The ramp curved away from the highway, and almost immediately, the lights disappeared behind me. The road ahead was flat, dark and empty in that way rural roads can be, where your headlights feel like the only thing holding the night back. After a few minutes, I reached what looked like a tiny town, a closed diner, a few houses, an old gas station, one streetlight blinking over the road. My GPS said I had arrived. But the gas station looked abandoned. No lights, no working pumps, no cars. The sign was so faded, I could barely read it. I sat there for a second with my hands on the wheel, annoyed and nervous, trying to decide if I should turn around or see if maybe the pumps still worked with a card. Then a man stepped out from beside the building. He waved like he had been waiting for me. I cracked my window maybe 2 inches. He said, "Pump's broken. There's another station up the road." I asked how far. He said, "Not far. Follow me." Something about him felt wrong immediately. He was not dressed like an employee. He was not wet, dirty, stranded, or carrying anything. He was just standing outside an abandoned gas station in the middle of the night, telling me to follow him. I said, "I'm good. I'll figure it out." When I started backing up, he did not move. He stood right in front of my car for a second too long, staring through the windshield. I drove around him and headed back the way I came. That was when my GPS started rerouting. It told me to turn left onto a road with no street sign, then right onto another road with no sign. The map showed names, but nothing matched what I was seeing. I kept driving, getting more and more turned around. Every house looked empty, no porch lights, no cars in driveways, no dogs barking, no curtains moving. Then I saw the same man again, standing at the next intersection. There was no way he got there before me on foot. No way. I turned right so fast my tires slipped on the gravel. My GPS started yelling at me to make a U-turn. I turned it off. A few seconds later, headlights appeared behind me. An old truck. It followed slowly, never getting too close, never falling too far back. I drove toward the brightest glow I could see in the distance, hoping it was the highway, or another town, or anything with people. The truck stayed behind me the whole time. When I finally saw the highway lights, I almost cried. I merged without signaling, without slowing down, without caring if anyone honked. As soon as I got back on the highway, the truck turned off. The next morning, I searched for that gas station. Nothing came up. I tried different map apps, searched old business listings, even zoomed around satellite view. Still nothing that matched. So I called the county sheriff's office and described the place. The woman on the phone got quiet. Then, she said there used to be an old service station near that exit, but it had been closed for more than 20 years. She asked if anyone approached me. When I said yes, she told me not to stop there again. I waited for her to explain. She did not. And honestly, I did not ask. Because I already knew one thing. That man was not trying to help me find gas. He was trying to make sure I did not find my way back. If you made it this far, you already know this channel is not about cheap jump scares. It is about the kind of stories that make you check the locks before you sleep. Subscribe for more long, real, feeling scary stories like this. And before you go, comment which one was the worst: the fake Airbnb, the closet door, or the town that was not on the map. I only got off the highway because my GPS said there was a gas station nearby. There was not. This happened while I was driving through Kansas after visiting family. It was close to 1 a.m., and I was low on gas. Not empty, but low enough that I was starting to watch the gauge more than the road. My GPS showed a station 3 miles off the next exit, so I took it. The ramp curved away from the highway, and almost immediately, the lights disappeared behind me. The road ahead was flat, dark and empty in that way rural roads can be, where your headlights feel like the only thing holding the night back. After a few minutes, I reached what looked like a tiny town, a closed diner, a few houses, an old gas station, one streetlight blinking over the road. My GPS said I had arrived. But the gas station looked abandoned. No lights, no working pumps, no cars. The sign was so faded, I could barely read it. I sat there for a second with my hands on the wheel, annoyed and nervous, trying to decide if I should turn around or see if maybe the pumps still worked with a card. Then a man stepped out from beside the building. He waved like he had been waiting for me. I cracked my window maybe 2 inches. He said, "Pump's broken. There's another station up the road." I asked how far. He said, "Not far. "Follow me." Something about him felt wrong immediately. He was not dressed like an employee. He was not wet, dirty, stranded, or carrying anything. He was just standing outside an abandoned gas station in the middle of the night, telling me to follow him. I said, "I'm good. I'll figure it out." When I started backing up, he did not move. He stood right in front of my car for a second too long, staring through the windshield. I drove around him and headed back the way I came. That was when my GPS started rerouting. It told me to turn left onto a road with no street sign, then right onto another road with no sign. The map showed names, but nothing matched what I was seeing. I kept driving, getting more and more turned around. Every house looked empty, no porch lights, no cars in driveways, no dogs barking, no curtains moving. Then I saw the same man again, standing at the next intersection. There was no way he got there before me on foot. No way. I turned right so fast my tires slipped on the gravel. My GPS started yelling at me to make a U-turn. I turned it off. A few seconds later, headlights appeared behind me. An old truck. It followed slowly, never getting too close, never falling too far back. I drove toward the brightest glow I could see in the distance, hoping it was the highway, or another town, or anything with people. The truck stayed behind me the whole time. When I finally saw the highway lights, I almost cried. I merged without signaling, without slowing down, without caring if anyone honked. As soon as I got back on the highway, the truck turned off. The next morning, I searched for that gas station. Nothing came up. I tried different map apps, searched old business listings, even zoomed around satellite view. Still nothing that matched. So I called the county sheriff's office and described the place. The woman on the phone got quiet. Then, she said there used to be an old service station near that exit, but it had been closed for more than 20 years. She asked if anyone approached me. When I said yes, she told me not to stop there again. I waited for her to explain. She did not. And honestly, I did not ask. Because I already knew one thing. That man was not trying to help me find gas. He was trying to make sure I did not find my way back. If you made it this far, you already know this channel is not about cheap jump scares. It is about the kind of stories that make you check the locks before you sleep. Subscribe for more long, real, feeling scary stories like this. And before you go, comment which one was the worst: the fake Airbnb, the closet door, or the town that was not on the map.